published, and so I like to read fresh stuff and see what people think of it. I do work in a really large series of books. The books themselves are kind of big and weird and indescribable. As my first editor often said to me, these have to be word-of-mouth books because they're too weird to describe to anyone, which is completely true. And the fact that they have time travel in them is an accident. It started out as perfectly straightforward historical fiction, but based on my having seen a man in a kilt on a Doctor Who episode. And I said, well, that's kind of fetching, all right. Scotland, why not? And so that's where I began writing in Scotland in the 18th century, knowing nothing about Scotland or the 18th century, having no plot, no outline, and no characters. Anyway, things happened, and around the third day of writing, I said, well, I must have a lot of Scotsmen because of the kilt factor, and the Jacobite Rising, that looks like plenty of conflict, okay. I think maybe I should have a female character to play off these guys, then we'll have sexual tension, that's conflict, that's good. All I knew about writing books was that they should have conflict, and which is actually all you need to know about writing books. But I said, fine, okay, female character, who should this be? I said, well, we're working in the Jacobite Rising. That was essentially Scots versus English, putting aside the political complexity. So if I make her an English woman, we'll have lots of conflict. So on the third day of writing, I introduced this English woman. No idea who she was, what she was doing in the book, or how she got into the story. But I loosed her into a cottage full of Scotsmen to see what she'd do. Well, she walked in, and they're all sitting around the hearth muttering, and they turned around and stared at her. And I'm thinking, why? Does she look funny? What's going on here? Anyway, one of them drew himself up, and he said, my name's Dougal Mackenzie, and who might you be? Without my stopping to think, I just typed, my name's Claire Elizabeth Beecham, and who the hell are you? And I said, well, you don't sound at all like an 18th century person. So I fought with her for several pages to repeat her into shape and make her talk like an 18th century person. She wasn't having any of this. She just kept making smart-ass modern remarks. And she also took over and started telling the story herself. And I said, okay, I'm not going to fight with you all the way through this book. I said, no one's ever going to read this. It doesn't matter what bizarre thing I do. I said, go ahead and be modern. I'll figure out how you got here later. So it's all her fault that there's time travel in these books. But once having made that decision, time travel kind of necessarily informed the rest of the story and is, in fact, a central element. Okay, well, that was 22 years ago that I first encountered Claire Beecham Randall Fraser, and we've been through a lot in the meantime. But we're now in the midst of the 8th book, which does